Celebrating small wins is extremely valuable in the world of inner work and emotional healing. This is one of those things that's pretty hard to do even with external stuff in our lives, right? Something goes well and it's so natural to go, okay, oh, yeah, but I should have done that 10 years ago, or whatever. I still am not out of debt completely. So who cares that I got this, $10 bump? But those are really not only important in the physical world, but more important, I would say, and easier to overlook in this world of working through your emotions, shadow work, all that stuff. So let's see if we can do some things to make this a regular practice. How can we integrate this into your life? This isn't going to be guided exercises or anything. We can have another video for that if you'd like, let me know. But just to introduce it as a concept and why it's so important and how you can integrate it daily. When you are dealing in the world of emotional work, it is more common than not for changes to be quite subtle, sometimes almost unrecognizable, until 6 months later you find yourself in a situation such as being in traffic or talking to that person that used to annoy the hell out of you, and you found yourself actually fairly calm and maybe even compassionate towards that person. But you didn't necessarily have that breakthrough moment where in a deep meditation, your heart opened and you saw love for that person. That happens sometimes, but more often it's the subtle ones. So if months go by, which they can, and you don't have the big breakthrough, that is where it's so easy to just give up entirely on all this stuff, to think it doesn't work, to say, oh, I did some tapping, I went to therapy for a long time, or I did this emotional process that was supposed to change my life and it didn't do anything. Unfortunately, that's a common sentiment because the gains are too subtle, the wins are too small, and we are conditioned and sometimes marketed to look for these big life changes. So one thing you can explore is when you are doing let's say you're doing an EFT tapping. I have a bunch of them on my channel. Let's say you pick a topic, it feels relevant to you, feeling unattractive is a popular one on my channel, or not feeling safe in your body. You do it, you work through it a little bit, you feel like some relief. You feel some sense in you that like, oh, this can go from a 10 out of 10 suffering to a 9.5 suffering. And I feel a little calmer, I feel a little more compassion for myself. That is something to celebrate and actually rekindle, re-encourage. Because the way a lot of emotional work works is, you're dealing with stuff embedded in the nervous system, you're dealing with neural pathways, you're dealing with your own habits and trauma at times and physiology. So it's not necessarily the case that even if you go through a video and you feel really good, or you have a private session with someone and feel pretty good, that the next day it's just going to be all better. In fact, new things can come up. You might go from like a 10 out of 10 to a 5 out of 10, and then the next day it's an 8. And you're like, what happened? That's actually okay. You want to celebrate that, hey, remember yesterday when I felt more peaceful? That means that my nervous system, my body, mind, spirit, is capable of processing. It's capable of moving in a good direction. Hold on to that. Celebrate that, because you are going to need it, because life is going to continue to be challenging at times. And there's going to be things that continue to be a challenge for sometimes in many cases, let's say. It's not to put a limiting belief on it, but a lot of the deeper traumatic stuff, or the things you're not even conscious of yet, are going to take some time to work through. So we want to develop this capacity and this habit of, hey, you know what? Yesterday, I felt a little relief on this. Maybe today I feel awful and I can't seem to get back into the headspace that I did yesterday. That's okay too. Celebrate that you're trying. It sounds corny and it sounds like, yeah, who cares? It's not a real result. That is in my experience the stuff that leads to real results, because some of my stuff that I've seen results on in my own life, was years of this. And some of it was the big breakthrough where there's like, Friday, this was a huge trigger. Saturday, it's gone. I can think of one. I did one with Brad Yates where it was like 20 years, almost gone the next day. It can happen. My experience, they're beautiful and rare. don't let that be your baseline of what you're looking for. Celebrate every little thing, and that will also train your mind to focus on more positive things and focus on the hope, the potential that this can be worked through. It may take more time, it may take more nuance. That is okay. It breaks my heart how many people I've known over the years who kind of lose touch with this because, yeah, it can be tough, and we're sold things, and they were told things by teachers or marketing that gave them an impression that this was going to look a certain way, and it was far more subtle, maybe a little more challenging. When things are challenging, which emotional work can be, that's when you really need those inner resources. Like, hey man, you can do it. I know today sucked. I know this week sucked. I know it feels like you're not making progress, but remember that time you did. Remember, you're capable of experiencing these gains, and they can build over time. And this is a marathon, not a race. Celebrate every little step you do. Celebrate the fact that you listened to this guy here on YouTube, and maybe you're going to take on some of these ideas. So hope it helps. You're not a repair project. I will talk to you next time.